think we're live. Let's try going live now. I think we're live now. I think we are. No, check it out. See if we are live. Go on your phone. Check on your phone. See if we're live. I don't even know. This, you know, if y'all are hearing me out there, this is really. Oh yeah, it's showing we are live now. Okay, so it looks like we are live. You know, I'm still learning all of this, so those of you that are watching, great, welcome to the channel. We got a lot of stuff to cover, and the first thing I want to cover is I want to talk about Putin and his orders of draft of reservists for war in Ukraine. So it looks like we're live. That's good. That's good. Let me see if I can get my co-host over here, Robert. There he is. There he is. I just wanted to make sure. You know, we'll get this finalized and we'll figure all this out. But it's just taken us a little while to learn everything. But you guys, I gotta share some breaking news. And the breaking news right now is over in Moscow with Putin. And right now, Moscow is in an escalation of the war in Ukraine. And Russian President Vladimir Putin has now raised the threat, listen to this, of a nuclear response in the conflict that he ordered reservists to mobilize. In other words, you know, I remember, I'm 62, and I remember when I turned 18, I had to put my name in at the post office in order to possibly be drafted. Well, I was lucky that everything stopped and I didn't get drafted. And, you know, now it's looking like drafts are starting all over again, only this time it's now starting over in Russia. So listen to this. They've ordered reservists to mobilize as Moscow seems to butt rest its army flagging manpower and regain the offensive following stinging losses on the battlefield. And this is what Putin says. And by the way, this was said today, Russia time. He says, Russia will use all the instruments at its disposal to counter a threat against its territorial integrity. He said, this is not a bluff. Now, I was just talking to a client a little while ago before I came on here, and I asked him, because he's a history teacher and he's a pretty smart guy, and I asked him, I said, David, I said, do you think it's a bluff? And he said, no. So I know David's listening. So David, I agree with you. Listen, it goes on, it says here, without providing evidence, Mr. Putin said top officials at the North Atlantic Treaty Organization had said that it would be acceptable to carry out nuclear strikes on Russia. What do you think about that, Robert?
Some scary stuff.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
Yeah. So he's basically stating that there are some top officials with NATO that have basically said that they were ready to carry out nuclear strikes as well. Wow. And he says, to those who allowed themselves such statements, I would like to remind them, Russia, listen to this, Russia has many types of weapons of destruction, the components of which in some cases are more modern than those of the countries of NATO. This is what Putin said. And in his speech, Putin cast the partial mobilization that Russia's first since World War II as a response to what he called a decades-long Western plot to break up Russia. And he repeated false accusations that the West had stirred rebellion inside the country's borders, armed terrorist rebels in the Muslim-dominated South, and arranged a coup in Ukraine in 2014 and transformed Ukraine into an anti-Russian brigade, turning the Ukrainians themselves into cannon fodders, he says. And then the partial mobilization and annexation of parts of Ukraine are an admission. They're saying that Putin's invasion is failing. And this is what UK Secretary of Defense Ben Wallace said in a tweet today. He said, no amount of threats and propaganda can hide the fact that Ukraine is winning this war. The international community are united, and Russia is becoming a global path. Well, Putin ignited the conflict with Ukraine by seizing the southern peninsula of Crimea and announcing its annexation to great fanfare in the Kremlin ceremony. And speaking on state television shortly after Putin spoke, his defense minister, Sergei Shoigu, appeared to prime the Russian population for a huge war. In other words, they're getting ready to go to war. They wouldn't just draft 300,000 to come to go to war for nothing. I mean, there's something up. And it goes on, he says, I cannot help but emphasize that today we are at a war not only with Ukraine and the Ukrainian army, but with the collective West, is what Mr. Shoigu said. And he said that the draft would amount to 300,000 reservists who would be deployed to help secure the territories that Russia is now occupying. And that the students would be excluded. So people that are students, they're going to be excluded from it. But he also gave the defense ministry's first accounting of its losses in Ukraine since March, saying that 5,937,000 troops, Russian troops, had died in battle. And, you know, that's a far lower number than the Western governments have been reporting. They reported somewhere around 15,000. So Mr. Putin's announcement, the draft is ineffective, is actually starting today. So now they're starting to draft today. And the chairman of the lower house of Parliament Defense Committee there in Russia said Wednesday that the first line for the draft would be privates, sergeants, corporals, and midshipmen who are, listen to this age, 35 and younger. And they would first undergo military training before being deployed. Wow, just think about that. That could happen here in the United States if we really got attacked. In a heartbeat. Drafts could start back all over again. Listen, Moscow raised the specter of unconventional weapons just days after Russia invaded its smaller neighborhood on February 24th, and warning the West to avoid interfering in the war and threatening that any attempts to meddle would lead to disastrous consequences. And the reference to nuclear weapons in Wednesday's speech could be him just talking or a signal that losses in Ukraine justify a nuclear response. He says here, all of our weapon systems, including the nuclear triad, are fulfilling their task, is what Mr. Shoigu said. So any decision by Vladimir Putin to use nuclear weapons, believe me, would be catastrophic and stupid, says Matthew Harris, the director of the nuclear policy at the Royal United Services Institute, which is a London-based think tank. And he said the nuclear threat has been taken seriously from the outset, but you have to combine taking it seriously with not being intimidated by the mere mention of nuclear weapons. That's what he said. Well, let me tell you, Russia has nuclear-capable weapons with conventional warheads in Ukraine several times in an attempt to test its suit of arms. And the mayor of a Ukrainian city, which is also Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky's hometown, said that nuclear-capable hypersonic missiles were used earlier this month to blow up a dam and caused massive flooding in the area. And last month, Mr. Shoigu said that the missile was crucial to Moscow's strike against important targets. So, you know, everything that we say here, Mr. Putin is saying that on Wednesday, financial resources should be freed to boost arms production at Russia's sprawling defense industries. And military analysts, however, now have cast doubt on the effectiveness of the partial mobilization that Putin ordered on Wednesday. And, you know, there's a senior policy researcher at the Rand Corporation who studies Russia's military, said the most effective use of the reservists would be to give them simple tasks like holding positions. But she said that wouldn't solve Russia's most pressing issue. And she went on to she said you cannot grow highly trained personnel overnight, which is what they need, is what she said. I don't know. To me, I don't think that Putin would just send 300,000 of his guys, women, whatever they are, into battle just to get slaughtered. So he's got a plan behind that. What do you think about that, Robert?
I think he's playing chess while everybody else is playing checkers. I mean, I don't see Putin putting his countrymen at risk. Not 300,000 people who are untrained, right? It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I don't see that happening.
What do you think that would do? What do you think that would actually do to our country if they actually go nuclear?
Well, that's geopolitical turmoil. I mean, when we talk nuclear, it just reminds me of some videos that you showed me maybe 2, 3 months ago of the city of New York showing how to take care of yourself, how to prepare yourself for a nuclear fallout. It's some scary stuff.
Well, I got to tell you, so Jim Rickards has been talking about, and I want to share this with y'all. Jim Rickards is talking about something today at 2 o'clock, catastrophic, is going to affect us. Well, I woke up this morning, the markets are up, but the markets are up every time that the Feds announce an interest rate hike, right? And then right after he announces it, boom, it goes down. So people know they're safe until he mentions that announcement. Well, let me share something with you. This is what Jim is saying today. He said that U.S. stock markets are in a long-term decline with some potential for a severe market crash, is what he's saying. And he goes on, he says, the tech-driven NASDAQ composite index has declined from 16,057 on November 19, 2021 to 11,425 at yesterday's close. Well, that's a 29% decline in just 10 months. That's pretty big. The S&P 500 index has declined from 4,784 on January 4th, 2022 to 3,855 as of just yesterday. That's a 19% decline in less than 9 months. And the Dow Jones Industrial Average Index has declined from 36,799 on January 4th, 2022 to 30,706 as yesterday's close, which is a 17% decline in less than 9 months. And the NASDAQ and the S&P 500 are in bear market territory based on these metrics, is what he's saying. Although the August rally created a new bull market interrupted by the September drawdown, according to some. And the Dow Jones is in correction territory now. And he says, regardless of the bull or bear labels, all three indexes have been characterized by a pattern of lower highs and lows indicative of long-term bear markets, regardless of occasional rallies. So no matter how high it rallies, it's way down, is what he's trying to say. And of course, you won't read these analyses, he says, in Wall Street research, nor hear it on financial television. He said the buy the dips crowd is alive. In other words, they're buying it when it goes down. When the market goes way down, they're just coming in and buying it. And he says they're alive and well. He said the Wall Street cheerleaders have an endless supply of new pom-poms in the form of a narrative about a soft landing, Fed pivot, and shallow recession, if any. And he goes on, he says, economic data does not support the happy talk narrative, and that the Fed will eventually have to stop their rate hikes, but not before the recession is severe and the damage has been done. Inverted yield curves in the Treasury market, and that's what we've been seeing, and the euro dollar futures are both strongly indicative of a much worse recession hitting later this year or early 2023 at the latest. Low labor force participation rates are about 61%. Belly the notion of a tight labor market's coming from the near record low unemployment rates. He says inflation will cool off quickly and not for good reasons. It will cool off because the recession is growing worse and employment will start to rise. Unemployment will start to rise. And the war in Ukraine and related supply chain disruptions continue with no end in sight. And the difficulty with a slowing economy and a declining stock markets is not that they're happening, they are, but that they could suddenly grow much, much worse. He says the coming recession is beginning to bear some resemblance to the run-up to the 2008 global financial crisis. This is why I'm sitting where I'm at today. This is why I've always said that gold and silver is the way to beat this, because as the markets dwindle and your stock and your 401ks just keep falling and falling and falling, yeah, like he said, they can go up, but the numbers don't lie. I was talking to a CPA the other day, and it's what we were talking about. I said, you know what doesn't lie? And he says, yeah, the numbers don't lie. And that's exactly what we're talking about here. This is why it's so important for you to start getting your house in order and start getting into some type of hard assets. Gold, silver, platinum, palladium, copper, name it. Anything. If you've got real estate, keep it. If you've got, whatever, just start putting money into something that you know that you can exchange for more value later on. Make sense? Go ahead.
So it's like insurance basically on the money you've earned and worked for over 20, 30, 40, 50 years of retirement planning.
That's right. That's right. And this is why, look, a lot of people don't understand that if you have an IRA, you can actually protect it. If you have a 401k, long as you're 59 and a half years old, you can actually protect it by having it in a self-directed IRA. Hey, listen, I want to get away from all that for a minute, and I just want to share some of the crazy news that's out there, first of all, but this is not so crazy. I saw this yesterday, and it just made my heart sink. And they were talking about how high food prices are getting to people now, and the scene at one grocery store shows why. Well, when I read it, it was like, oh, I know that grocery store. Because I know Louisiana pretty well because I've been in and out of there many times. And I want to share this article with you. And it's really interesting and it's heartbreaking because it was a journalist that was literally at Rouse grocery stores, which is a chain. They're a small chain in Louisiana. And they were in Houma, Louisiana, which is just, right outside of New Orleans there. And they were talking to people that were going into the store and coming out of the store. And I want to share some of this with you. Listen to this. It says, an afternoon spent talking with shoppers and reviewing grocery receipts outside of Rouse's Market in Houma, nearly 60 miles southwest of New Orleans, painted a picture of the trade-offs and the difficult decisions that families are facing to avoid steadily rising food bills. And, the Consumer Price Index, which measures what consumers pay for goods and services, it rose 8.3% in August from the same month a year ago. And it's driven by high prices for everything from new vehicles to medical care and electricity. Groceries, listen to this, were 13.5% higher just in August. Imagine what they're going to be in September. Wow. And, these numbers, by the way, are coming from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So these aren't just hoaxes. These aren't just made up numbers. And that is the biggest 12-month jump since March of 1979. with no relief in sight, and many consumers say they're struggling to keep up. So if you're out there and you stumble across this video, believe me, I understand, but things will get better. Look, things are going to get destroyed all the way on the way down, but it will get better. So have hope, have faith. But let me share something with you. In Houma, Louisiana, just over half of the households are considered middle class there. Now, this is what they're considering middle class. With a median income of $44,956, Robert, and according to Pew Research, they're the ones that stated that wages fail to keep up. I was looking over at Europe. My God, their inflation is like 30-40% over there. It's killing Germany right now. I think I mentioned it yesterday. I have a friend of mine, retired doctor, who moved from UK, took his pension, went to Germany where he's from, and he was telling me that he purchased to purchase a loaf of bread. Think about it. Just go into your local grocery store or market to get a loaf of bread, almost $8-9 a loaf. It's coming. It's coming. So listen to these stories. When single mom Jamaica Bonvillain started tearing up. I just get to the point where I break down and I'm like, okay, how do I do it? She said. And after getting off of her shift as a part-time bricklayer, she grabbed $129 worth of food. $129. And including a $7.99 Lunchable that her son had begged for that had jumped from about $5. So it went from $5 to $7.99. She was restocking the pantry after moving back into her home 2 weeks ago, more than a year after it had been damaged by Hurricane Ida. Speaking of hurricanes and storms, look at what's happening in Puerto Rico right now. Look what just happened to them. It says here, until a few months ago, $832 in monthly government assistance was enough to comfortably feed her 4-person family. Now, listen to this. Now the essentials cost her close to $1,400 a month. She's been buying in bulk from Sam's Club and picking up dollar store paper towels and toilet paper so thin that you can see through it.
This is unreal.
Oh my God, this is America. And then listen to this. So thin that you could see through it. To stretch the budget, she said. And she has taken on extra work painting and landscaping on the weekends to try to just make up the difference. She says, I'm going to be dead honest. Mental health, it's taken a toll on me. Why is it so hard to stay afloat and to live without just going through the motions of living? This is what she says. This is what she was asking. 40 years old, while her 8 and 13-year-olds were listening and looking on. And then they said, at 8 and 13 years old, almost wants to break my heart. They said they worry too. Wow. It just puts tears in my eyes. Just to think that the kids are out there having to watch what their parents are struggling through.
Yeah, those children shouldn't be living like that or thinking like that.
Listen here, here's a 54-year-old. Carrie Carter. Carrie Carter's out there. Grocery shopping has become something of a second job. Oh my God. A second job. An avid cook. She's a cook. Oh, this is Mr. Carter said he now only buys food when it's on sale and plans his meals accordingly. He decides where to go shopping for the week based on the things that he gets in the mail. In other words, those coupon mailers, which he skims over breakfast every morning. He normally only goes to Rouse's on Wednesday when more goods are on sale. Still, he said his monthly grocery bill just keeps climbing month after month. He says, I can't do what I want to do. I have to be on a budget. Well, that sounds like control to me. That sounds like they're controlling him. The way that this economy is being shaped and set, it looks like they're starting to, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but it looks like people are being controlled because they're only allowed to spend so much and they're only allowed to purchase so much of something. And so he says, by the way, Mr. Carter, he's a construction worker. So those of you out there that are construction workers, I'm sure you can relate with Mr. Carter as well. Mr. Carter, a construction worker, said he can't remember his last vacation. And he hasn't been able to afford the materials he needs to finish the house that he's building for his family, including his wife and his teenage sons. He can't even finish his house. And as a child, he remembers looking forwards to trips to the supermarket. Boy, I can remember how I'd want to be in the back of that station wagon on the way to the grocery store, right? I can relate with that, with his mom. And now he says, I cringe. Mr. Carter says, who spent $80.86 at the market that day, according to his receipt. He was only planning to pick up tomatoes, but ended up also getting 6 packs of chicken wings on sale for $1.49 a pound, down from about $5. 3 packages of sausage, $6.99 each. Yikes. Chicken thighs, wow, $7.08. Bananas, $1.12. Broccoli, $2.37. And a red onion, one red onion, $1.50, $1.50. He said he can't afford to buy red meat or pork chops anymore, but said it's the biggest loss. The biggest loss is that he can no longer host as many seafood boils for his friends and family. And believe me, I know down there in Louisiana, they like to have them seafood boils, those crawfish boils. Yeah, I know that. Well, what used to be $100 for shrimp, crab, corn, sausage, potatoes, and lemons is now $300. Boils are the lifeblood of Louisiana. That's what Mr. Carter said, adding that he feels less connected to his community without them. By the way, there's that red onion, if you can see it. There's the red onion. And then there's a, whoops. Then there's a, I told you, I'm not used to all this yet. Then there's Jessica Bordeaux, 45. And her son, Daniel Horsley, 23. So I know there's a lot more Jessicas. I know there's a lot more Carries out there that are hearing this. But I want to share this one with you. Spent $68.21 that day on ingredients for cornbread. $68.21 on cornbread. Mexican dip and affordable staples like hot dogs. She said she had been shopping at Rouse's instead of more expensive stores closer to her house. Now, keep in mind, Rouse's is supposed to be a less expensive store. That's why they're going to Rouse's. She said 2 years ago, she said she spent about $300 a month on groceries for her and her son. Now, their bill is $600. She was most struck by the price of a dozen eggs. $2.49, and a stick of margarine at $1.49. The price of eggs is up about 40% from a year ago, according to the Labor Department, and butter and margarine are up 29%. It's horrible. It's nonsense, said Miss Bordeaux, who received disability assistance. And her other son and her grandson are moving in with her soon, and she doesn't know how she will afford to even feed everyone. Lucky my grandbaby is only 2. He doesn't eat a lot. Oh my God,
I can't
Robert,
believe that.
you have a child that's 2, and you have a child that's just newly just
Yeah,
came
yeah,
in.
she's 2 months. I mean, and I couldn't look at my son who just eats like a little monster, or even Isabel, who's just 2 months old, last week. I could never look him in the face and like, you can't have this, or we can't afford steak this week, or what have you. They're going through a lot right now. It's I can't believe it.
I mean, listen, Miss Bordeaux says, luckily my grandbaby is only 2 years old and he doesn't eat a lot. She's also concerned about buying Halloween candy, saying that she has to start stocking up now on the cheapest options available. I feel bad because it's for kids, but I got to do what I got to do, she said. Wow, if I knew how to get to hold this lady, I'd send her a box of candy right now.
Right.
I mean,
Exactly.
no kidding. Here, I'm going to share one more with you. Whew. Megan Naquin, 38 years old. Now remember, this is a journalist. That's all he's doing is he's talking to shoppers that are going in and out of the store. 38 years old, visited the supermarket. Man, that gives me an idea. That'd be a great thing. Just, oh, wow. 38 years old, visited the supermarket with her 1 year old and her 3 year old for a few ingredients for the breaded chicken that she was making them for dinner. She said she now spends more on groceries for her family of 8 than on her $1,500 a month mortgage.
Wow.
Oh. Stuff hasn't just gone up a little bit, it's gone up tremendously, is what she said. Adding that she and her husband have been trying fewer recipes and doing less cooking for fun than they once did. She cautions her 6 children not to go through the food in the pantry too quickly. And anytime we go grocery shopping, we say, this better still be here next week. Oh my God. There she is. There she is with the kids. Holding on to one and the other one's hanging on to the stroller. She's got a little couple things in the bag. Listen, folks, this is real. This is not just happening overseas, international. This is happening right in our backyard. And you out there feel it. And believe me, I feel it as well. We all are feeling it. And this is why we've really got to do something. We can't let this happen. This isn't supposed to happen to America. Hey, on a more happier side of things, I want to ask you, Robert. There was a article that came out yesterday. It was a survey that was done by Wallet Hub, and Wallet Hub named the happiest state in the United States. Do you have any idea where that would be? This is the happiest state in the United States. Where do you think that is?
Texas?
Nah.
No?
Hawaii.
Hawaii.
They say that Hawaii has the lowest percentage of depression in the country. Now, I wonder why that is.
Well, they're covered by the ocean.
Covered by the ocean.
Mahalo.
Yeah, mahalo. There's, folks, let me just tell you something. With these high food prices, there's also another one that's out there. I just have to share it with you because it also has to do with our electric bills, how our electric bills are soaring across the country as the winter looms. And U.S. utility customers are faced now with some of the largest bills in years, and they're set to pay even more this winter as natural gas prices continue to climb. This does not need to be happening. All I can say without stepping into anything, vote. Vote. Go with your gut. Go with whoever is telling you that things are wrong and that things need to be changed, that we need to make this country great again. Because right now, there's a lot of things out there that are literally putting us out of control. And when I say out of control, I always tell people, do you want to have control or no control? Me, I want to have control. So I'm going to do everything in my power to get the word out there to all of you so that you know how to take control. And the one way that you can take control, for those of you that can, is to literally start putting your assets in hard assets like gold and silver. And all you have to do is give us a call. Robert, you have that number. Give them the number.
1-800-753-8534.
Say it again one more time for those that
800-753-8534.
Right. So those of you that are not listening to us right now that stumble across this, and I pray that you do stumble across it, it's very important that you start getting everything in order, because there's so much right now that is happening that we need to take control. Look, there is some good news out there. With the Justice Department, I was checking this out yesterday. There were 47 people, because there were so many people out there that were taking these PPP loans, these COVID loans, when they were giving away all that free money. And they, in fact, I've heard of some that I know personally as well. And all I can do is, whatever happens to them happens if they get caught. But let me tell you something. There's 47 people in Minnesota that were stealing $250 million from the COVID program that was meant to feed children.
What?
Yeah. Listen to this. So the Department of Justice on yesterday, announced charges against 47 defendants in Minnesota for their role in $250 million fraud scheme to exploit a COVID-19 food program. And it was called Feeding Our Future. This money was meant to go to kids, and instead of these crooks out there took this money. So this nonprofit is at the center of the charges. And this nonprofit, listen to this, they perpetuated the largest COVID-19 fraud scheme in the nation. And the U.S. government stated this on Saturday. Listen, if any of you know anybody out there that is doing anything like this, taking money, using it for their own personal use instead of using it for anything like what it's supposed to be used, report them. There's a way you can go online and you can report it. Just Google, and I'll get you that information tomorrow, and you can actually report it. Look, these defendants were charged against 6 separate indictments and 3 criminal informations with charges of conspiracy, wire fraud, money laundering, and bribery. And that's what the DOJ said. And the federal authorities, they charged, thank God they got these people, they charged 47 people in Minnesota with conspiracy and other accounts, and what they said Tuesday was the largest fraud scheme to take advantage of the COVID-19 pandemic by stealing $250 million from a federal program that provides meals to low-income children. It's $250 million worth of food that was just stolen out of those babies' mouths. And prosecutors, they say that the defendants created companies. Listen to this. This is how crooked these people are. And if you're out there and can hear me and you're one of those crooks, turn yourself in. But prosecutors say that defendants created companies that claimed to be offering food to tens of thousands of children across Minnesota, and then sought reimbursement for those meals through the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Food Nutrition Program. Prosecutors say that few meals were actually served and that defendants used the money to buy luxury cars like Ferraris, and it goes on, property and jewelry. And many of the companies that claim to be serving food were sponsored by a nonprofit called Feeding Our Future. Feeding Our Future. Which submitted the company's claims for reimbursement. Feeding Our Future's founders and executive director, Amy Bach, was among those indicted. Amy Bach. B-O-C-K. Hopefully she doesn't get released.
How does she
Because
defend
I've been
herself?
seeing, well, I've been seeing a lot of people go in and then they release them. They can't hold them or something. Hopefully they don't get released. Anyway, was among those indicted, and authorities say she and others in her organization submitted the fraudulent claims for reimbursement and even received kickbacks. These indictments, alleging the largest pandemic relief fraud scheme charged to date, underscore the Department of Justice's sustained commitment to combating pandemic fraud and holding accountable those who perpetuate it, said Attorney General Merrick Garland. Good for you, Attorney General. I'm glad that you stated that, and I'm glad that you're going after these people. And I hope that those others that are out there that have stole hundreds of millions of dollars, whatever the dollar amounts out there, it's a lot, I know. I hope you get caught, and I hope they get busted. And in partnership with agencies across the government, the Justice Department, listen to those of you out there that did anything that you may think you skirted the system, says the Justice Department will continue to bring justice to those who have exploited the pandemic for personal gain and stolen from us American taxpayers. This is what Garland said. So I think this is great what he's doing. I'm going to end the show. You have our phone number. We're going to be back on again tomorrow. Like I said, we're just getting our feet wet in this, and we're going to get better and better at this. And eventually we'll have call-ins. We'll do all sorts of different things. But right now we're just learning how to use these cameras. And by the way, we're going to be breaking down a wall and building in a bigger studio so we can add more guests, bring this into like a real news channel. So God bless you all out there. And look forward to seeing you again tomorrow.
Take care, y'all.
Good night. Good day.